At only 4 less millimeters than a 24-105, but giving you an f2.8 aperture, is this Sigma 28-105 worthy of your attention? I'd say so. And in this video, I'm going to be reviewing this lens from the perspective of a wedding filmmaker and telling you whether I think it's a good choice for you to buy if you film weddings or documentaries or corporate or commercial videos, etc. And you need a lens with a wide range and a lot of versatility. Also, for the sake of ethics, I want you to know this video is not paid or sponsored by Sigma, and while they have loaned me this lens so I can make this review, I will sadly be returning it to them very soon. In addition, if you're a wedding filmmaker, I would love to help you out more, so down in the video description, I've linked to my free wedding film booking workshop. It's going to show you the exact steps that you need to take to book your next wedding in 30 days or less. You can watch it for free at the link down in the video description. Now, I have to confess something. I've always found 24 to 70 millimeter lenses to be a little bit boring, if for no other reason than they have basically become kit lenses for full frame cameras at this point. Everyone buys one whenever they're getting a new camera. But the 24 to 105 millimeter focal length is quite different in my opinion. The extra range that you get being able to zoom in a good 35 millimeters further than 70 millimeters makes a huge difference, especially for wedding filmmakers, because there are so many situations where you need just a little bit of extra zoom that a lens that extends to 105 millimeters gives you. I've found lenses like this to be much more versatile, enough so that I filmed multiple weddings with a Sony 24 to 105, throwing it on a gimbal, using it handheld, using it all day, only changing from that lens whenever it hit the one limitation that most other lenses in that focal range also hit, specifically the limitation of a low light performance. Because yes, up until very recently, pretty much all lenses that hit these 24 to 105 focal lengths were at their widest aperture only an f4, meaning that when things got too dark, like a dance floor at a wedding reception, that's whenever you had to switch lenses to something with a wider aperture. But that all changed in late 2023 when Canon introduced a very impressive new RF mount lens, a 24 to 105 f2.8. f2.8 at this focal range was possible. And now here we are with Sigma, who've given us an alternative and much more affordable option with their 28 to 105 f2.8. Now, the first thing that you're going to notice about this lens is that it's definitely a very beefy boy. It's big, it weighs 990 grams, and is that really surprising? For Sigma to be able to make this lens f2.8, it needs a lot of glass. The good news is, though, that while it is large, it still has a nice weight distribution, especially zoomed out to about halfway zoomed in or so. Meaning as long as you aren't filming a ton handheld at 105 millimeters, you should be okay. But just be aware, it's going to be a hefty weight to carry around on a longer day like a wedding. Now that said, Sigma has also told me they've tried to reduce the weight of this lens as much as possible by doing things like not using aluminum in the body, but magnesium, because that's lighter and still strong. Weight aside, there is one other critical difference between this Sigma and its main competition, the Canon RF 24 to 105, and that is the 4 millimeter tighter focal length at the wide end, due to the Sigma only being 28 millimeters and not 24. The main thing that I want you to keep in mind is that the wider a lens gets, the more noticeable that every extra millimeter of width is going to be. For example, a 16 millimeter is significantly wider than a 20 millimeter, but a 70 millimeter isn't dramatically wider than a 74 millimeter, even though it's only a 4 millimeter difference between both of these examples. So I say all that to emphasize that while the jump from 24 millimeter to 28 millimeters is only 4 millimeters, this is still going to be a noticeable crop in. And if you are someone that commonly finds yourself filming at 24 millimeters like me, and you love that focal length, also like me, sacrificing a bit of that width may be difficult for you. Side note, this bigger difference in width at wider focal lengths is also why I'm not doing a big comparison between this Sigma 28 to 105 and something like the Tamron 35 to 150, because once you take another 7 millimeters from the wide end of this lens, it's not much of a wide angle anymore, which is why I think that this Sigma competes more with a 24 to 105. Just wanted to mention that because I'm sure I'm going to get comments asking about that Tamron lens. Anyways, the best way for you to tell if you're going to be comfortable using this Sigma is for you to either rent this exact version, or if you want an alternative, get your hands on any 16 to 35 millimeter lens and set it to 24 millimeters, then zoom it into 28 millimeters, and play around with those two focal lengths, seeing how you feel about them, and if you could live with a bit less width. For some people, you won't miss the extra width at all, and I think you're going to love this 28 to 105, while other people are going to be really annoyed by it, and you're going to want that extra 4 millimeter that you're used to, and you can feel free to complain to me about it in the comments. For me, I found myself wondering if I could live without those extra 4mm that I was used to, being a 24mm lover, and with the knowledge that I'm getting 105mm on the long end as well as an f2.8 aperture, in that situation, after using this lens for a while, I think that I could live with a compromise and still happily use this lens. Now, this f2.8 aperture wouldn't matter if the image quality from this lens sucked, but I have good news too. It doesn't suck. It's very sharp even at f2.8, and the colors from it look contrasty and saturated. It's a very well-built modern Sigma lens, and like I've said in a lot of my previous lens reviews, I feel now. Yeah, it's been years since I've used a lens that was blurry or had weird issues. Modern lenses from pretty much all manufacturers are pretty darn good these days. Autofocus performance is also great as well. It's fast and responsive, and I found that it worked very well with this lens. One con that I will say for at least the Sony mount version of this Sigma lens, though, is that when it comes to manual focus, this is not a linear focus lens, meaning that if you rotate the focus ring slowly, it will slowly adjust, but if you rotate it quickly, it's going to adjust the focus very quickly, but it's never consistent. This is a bummer, but also in line with Sigma's other new lenses like their 28-45, which I also recently reviewed. That lens also focuses in a similar way. With the L mount version of this lens, I believe you can change whether the lens is linear focus or not in the camera settings, but that is unfortunately not possible yet with the Sony version of the lens. Otherwise though, this Sigma has a lot of the modern features that you would expect, including multiple programmable buttons, an autofocus manual focus switch, and an aperture ring that can be made clickless. Another feature that's normally common but surprisingly good on this lens is the zoom lock switch. Enable this switch and the lens will not accidentally extend the barrel without you meaning it to, so if you're holding it upside down, you're fine. But the nice upgrade to this lock switch that I've not personally experienced before is that even with the switch locked, if you start to rotate the zoom ring, the switch will automatically unlock so you can zoom the lens in and out. This is really nice because I found myself forgetting to unlock my zoom lenses before and then wondering why they aren't working and having to fumble around like, where's the switch? You can unlock it. So this is a quicker way of doing things, and it's really great. That said though, because we have been talking about the Canon 24-105 in this video a decent amount, I do want to point out that in regards to zooming, the Canon has an internal zoom, which is fantastic for video, while this Sigma has a traditional zooming barrel that goes in and out. This isn't really surprising given the cost, which we'll talk about in a bit, but it is something I would keep in mind. And while the Sigma is 34mm shorter than the Canon whenever it's zoomed out, once you zoom it in, it's going to be about 7mm longer than the Canon. It's not a massive difference, but I prefer internal zooms like Canon's because this can make balancing a lens on a gimbal a bit easier. Now, as far as focus breathing goes, this is something that I had to test because unfortunately Sony's focus breathing compensation feature, which is fantastic, is not supported with third-party lenses like this one. Thankfully, in my testing, the focus breathing appears to be rather minimal, which means this lens is great if you oftentimes find yourself pulling focus and you don't want your framing to change. And at a price of only $1,500 at the time of recording this video, the Sigma 28-105 feels like it's in a good place because it's priced only a couple $100s more than f4 lenses like the Sony 24-105, but this lens gives you an f2.8 aperture while also literally being half the price of its biggest competitor, the Canon RF 24-105. Don't get me wrong, that Canon lens is fantastic, but it's going to set you back an eye-watering $3,000 compared to this Sigma at $1,500. So your choice of whether you buy this Sigma or not depends on whether you're wanting a lens with this zoom range and wide of an aperture, because honestly, if you want those features, you really only have two choices, this or the Canon. And I think Sigma makes a really compelling argument for it, considering they sell it in both E-mount and L-mount. Oh, and not to mention at the time of recording this video, you can't actually purchase an RF mount version of this Sigma lens. So unless you're going to change camera systems to Canon, I don't know how feasible it is for you to choose the Canon 24-105 instead. As long as you're okay with 4 less millimeters on the wide end and you have the arm strength to carry it around, I think you're going to absolutely love this Sigma 28-105. Speaking of things you're going to love, I think you're also going to love my wedding filmmaker gear guide. You can download the guide completely for free, and it's going to show you all the equipment that I recommend that you buy to film a wedding, including all the lenses, camera gear, gimbals, drones, everything that you need to film a wedding. And like I said, it's completely free and you can download it at the link down in the video description. Thanks so much for watching. Please like this video and subscribe if you want to see more lens reviews and things like that in the future, and have a great day.